Good morning, everyone, and welcome to NECANN TV, being brought to you by Disrupt Boston. I'm your host, Rhodes Pierre, and today's guest, is Representative Russell Holmes.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming by to this opening event. Actually, the event opened up yesterday. So NECANN is actually the premier New England cannabis industry kind of networking event and also showcase. And I'm glad that you came down. I wanted you to kind of see what was going on as far as like since marijuana or cannabis has been legalized in the state of Massachusetts. I wanted to invite you down and check it out.
I can tell you I would not have been here without you because of the fact that I didn't even know, even as a state rep, I didn't even know that this was happening. I had not been receiving any advertisement, and to now learn that this is the 5th year, it's even also a surprise to me because of the fact that I think of marijuana or cannabis, and I think of the folks who were advocating on the Boston Commons. Not that you've organized as well, so it is good to be out here today.
No, yeah, well, they're actually part of this as well. So there are many organizations that are always doing the advocating for a plant. It's just kind of funny to me how laws are set up against Mother Nature in that regards. But again, that's
set up against Mother Nature. That's just an interesting. See, I have to still start to get used to this perspective. Set up against Mother Nature when you're thinking about the many years that Mother Nature has done a war on the communities that I represent. So it's interesting just to hear that.
Well, because I really feel like it's just a plant, and again, the fact that they've put laws against it, there are things that are far more dangerous naturally, like poison ivy, poison oak, poison sumac. But again, it's just and then like how also they were the 1937 laws that made marijuana illegal. They were monetary gains to be made by making marijuana illegal because they used to make clothing with it, hemp, paper.
We're going to still do that now. Yes, that's great to hear. We're opening up a place.
We're going to be opening up the place. So we're actually kind of giving an exclusive little session right here.
Sure.
Again, just want to give a shout out to Disrupt TV, NECANN TV for Disrupt Boston and NECANN TV for having this. And again, thank you again, Representative State Russell Holmes, District 6, representing the better part of Boston.
I would say I represent some of the communities, like you said, the better part. Certainly Mattapan, Dorchester, Hyde Park,
I grew up in
Rosendale,
Mattapan, and it's just funny that I wanted to definitely talk to you about the fact that you grew up in Mattapan, and Mr. Evans from Briggs Ice Cream was one of your mentors and everything.
Sure.
He was a pillar of the community.
Yeah, small business owner, which is I think many ways the things that we're thinking about we want to be in this industry.
Absolutely.
Small business owner, person of color, hiring young folks, even though you can't hire folks too young, obviously, in this industry, but just really the thought process of how do you run a business and how do you run it successfully. Seeing that at our age, I started working there at 14 and a half, eventually started managing it, and really seeing all the ins and outs have really helped me when I went to go run my own business. I had a small video shop before I now run my own practice as a financial planning firm. So it is great to just see that from a small child because of the fact that it is really the life that I say I knew from the beginning that I wanted to live. I wanted to run my own show.
Okay. That is awesome that you got to do that, and that he was a great mentor. And like I said, he was an awesome pillar to the community. I love the ice cream.
And he was also a pillar. He was not only was he thinking about the business perspective, but he was thinking about the community perspective, which is exactly what you were talking about. Which is how is it that all of a sudden you've taken a plant, as you mentioned, and now make it one of the most dangerous things that really afflicted our communities and not helped our communities.
Yeah. So now speaking of things that afflicted our community, one of the things that I know when the law was being passed, they had put special rules or so
the they is us. I'm one of those people.
Yes. They had put in guidelines to make sure that communities adversely affected by the war on drugs was giving preferential treatment so that they're kind of like not pushed to the head of the line, but given a hand to make sure that it's an equal.
So I would say
equity.
I would say those things were added in after we passed the law.
Yes.
Only because of the fact that we saw what happened with medicinal. When the medicinal law was passed, you think about it. For me, as a community that I said represents Mattapan, Dorchester, Hyde Park, Rosendale, JP, it is a community that had been being locked up for just 30 or 40 years. You've had this war on drugs, and then all of a sudden you change this war on drugs and now move it from a public safety arm of the government to say we're going to lock up as many people as we want or we can to a public health problem. And once it's a very different tool using public health versus public safety. And so my concern with the new law was that after seeing what happened with medicinal, you had it so that the stigma of you would have black people, you come into the city, you all of a sudden you go get your marijuana, then you go back out to your suburbs. And what we saw with medicinal marijuana was all of a sudden you removed people of color out of the mix, and now the ownership was all white. And so we didn't want to make that mistake again when we think about what's about to happen in this industry, $1 billion industry or so. We want to make sure that we put in rules to make sure that people of color were also going to be a part of this industry.
All right, no, that's great, and that's one of the things that I mean, not only yourself, but also the commission. Have you worked with the commission?
So not only just when you think about Commissioner Title, who of course is one of the big advocates around advocacy around people of color, but the entire Black and Latino caucus. So not just me, but the caucus felt that it was imperative that we made sure that these laws are also very important. And the other person I would like to give a shout out to around how important it was our new Congresswoman, Ayanna Pressley, strongly advocating within the city that we need to make sure we change, as well as Tito Jackson.
Oh, awesome. And then that's that's one of the things that's going on within the city right now is the fact that there's so much money coming in, and then a lot of people are questioning where that money is coming in and how it's being spent. So any thoughts on that?
So my thoughts on it are clear. They are we've seen, even I think in the Spotlight article this week from the Globe, you see how much money it takes to get this business started.
Yeah, a lot of money.
So yes, an awful lot. And so my inhibitions have been, how do we make sure we get people of color in the front of the line? And what I keep hearing is that it's near impossible just because of the size of money you need. And so when I look at the Spotlight article, it just continues to reinforce that folks might feel like, hey, you're just a token or a person that's being used. I feel very different. I would like to be able to find a place where we can go and get this type of money to run these small, very capable businesses. And then from there, if you're going to have a loan, even though it's a more high interest loan, I think that when I read the Spotlight article, it said somewhere in the neighborhood of 15%. It's a risky business.
No,
and it's a risky business that takes an enormous amount of money to get started.
Yeah, but I think some of the things that people wanted to point out was the fact that they're getting the loan, but they're also now have to purchase their products exclusively from that particular person that they're getting the loan from.
Until you pay off the loan, I'm sure there's going to be some incentives from the business around how that's going to work. But I'm not, when I think of the business, I think of it is a way to get started in an industry that most folks were not going to be able to get in. And I still see it even in Boston, where my position has simply been, we need to make sure that we don't roll it out too fast. Because I'd rather us roll it out slower than roll it out too fast and then not have folks of color in the industry.
No, I mean, there are plenty of folks of color and everything like that in the industry. I mean, it's just amazing.
There are plenty of folks of color in the underground industry. But when I walk around here today, I don't see plenty of folks of color in the NECANN, obviously in the show today. So yes, we are here, but we need to be here in stronger ways.
Exactly. There should be more numbers of us like it.
Particularly when you think about the history of what you thought of around cannabis and who you normally would buy from.
Yes, exactly. And that's the thing, too. Again, the media always portrayed it, and then that's one of the things. It's like, although we only make 12% of the population,
yes.
like as far as like enforcement of law or incarceration, we make 50% or like closer to 70%.
50% when you talk about Black, Latinos, Asians, absolutely.
Of like the prison population, but yet we know we're not committing as much to crimes. It's
by no means.
Yeah, it's the offense. It's the interpretation and the leeway of the prosecution and the district attorney of like how they proceed with the charges.
Well, that is what has also happened. We've had, to me, the unfortunate thing, or the fortunate but unfortunate reason, is that we've had such a sad incident that's been happening with opiates. You've had it so that for decades, this was the addiction problem was really a problem that folks thought around crack, which was mostly for people of color, Black and Latinos. But when we've had this unfortunate incidence of opiates killing, unfortunately, about 2,000 people a year in the Commonwealth, 88% of those people are white.
Yeah.
And so when you think about the fact that now has made it so that all of my colleagues in government have said, oh, this is not just Springfield, Lawrence, Boston. This is literally from Pittsfield to Lee to Brockton to every community. We've been able to get a lot of criminal justice reform laws to really say, how do we handle this? And cannabis is just one of those, I think, modifications that are good for everybody.
Yeah, actually, I like to quote Dr. Uma Thurman, who always likes to say cannabis is the exit-way drug, not the entry-way drug, because she says like it's a way out as far as being a true medicine to get people off addiction and, long-term healthy.
Well, I'm going to have to look at that study to think about it's an exit way instead of an entryway. But yes, and that's the way it's always been thought of before. And that's the thing. I
mean, I grew up with DARE, and one of the things with DARE was like, like literally when I was in class, all it did was like tell me like, okay, I'm going to try this. I'm not going to try that.
Sure.
It wasn't like it deterred me.
Well,
it was just like, no, that's crazy. I wouldn't do that. You know what I mean?
I don't want to go crazy. I just want to be a little bit high. I got you. So I can just tell you, I can tell you I'm a person who's never used any cannabis in my life.
Okay.
And I've never drank in my life. So even though I had Dare, I stayed away from all of it. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to try it today either. So just to let you know.
But but it is it's one of those things. It's like if it needs to be happening. I mean, there's our friend Al Harrington. You ever heard of him?
I do not know Al.
He's a basketball player, and
Okay.
he started his own cannabis company. It's like a multi-state, multi-million dollars. He's another brother that's involved in the business.
Okay.
And there are plenty of people nationally involved, but in Massachusetts, we need to increase that number and that concentration.
Sure, sure.
I mean, we have like people Mark.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2019 New England
So great to hear.
Yeah.
Day two.
Day two, yes.
There are two exhibit halls, Exhibit Hall A and Exhibit Hall B. Please make sure that you check out more than 300 plus vendors. And have a wonderful day.
Excellent. All right.
Yeah. So,
300 vendors. Even that to think about. I know you're saying something, but to think about 300 vendors here in Massachusetts. So I know you're saying we're not in the legislature and government. We're not moving fast enough, but you guys are moving faster than what we're moving. And I see it no different than what I've seen with Uber, with Lyft, with Airbnb. You can't expect government to keep up because of the fact that there are so many hesitancies because of the fact that we are still listening to an awful lot of people who are still hesitant. Even when you think about cannabis, 52% of the folks in this Commonwealth voted for it. But remember, there are 48% of the people in the Commonwealth who didn't. And so we have to continue to balance this. And so even though I know you're, as you say, a strong advocate for cannabis, we have to have the community be educated. And that's really the process that's happening within the city. Educating folks that we voted
that's
for.
A very
and
key
what
thing
makes
is
sense.
education is the fact that's been a problem with the misinformation that has been and the propaganda that's been propagated for years and years because cannabis before 1937 was actually a legal and very productive plant in the society. Hemp was its cousin, so they used it for paper, rope, clothing. So there's so many industries that benefited from hemp being illegal that's why they pushed the legislation. The gentleman by the name of William H. Hearst owned a bunch of newspapers, and he
I know
owned
Hearst, of course.
so he owned the patent to turn trees from trees, and he had the chemicals to turn it to paper, and so that's why he made the big campaign to make hemp.
But see, none of that
hemp
matters
illegal.
to the community. So
Yeah.
none of that. So that's
all
not
about
the
the money.
conversation. No, the conversation in the community has been. When you say propaganda, it has been just the war on drugs that
No, it's a
really,
war on drugs.
That really most of the
It's
folks
a
in the
product
community.
of propaganda.
But the most of the community still think of it as a gateway, not an exit way.
Yeah.
And folks are most concerned around all of the other things that come later from our perspective: fentanyl, carfentanil, coke, crack, all of those things.
My whole thing is just like if people just know why it was made illegal in the first place, that it was not.
Well, I would
real
just say
justice,
don't
it's
get
on
lost
public
in that
health.
whole Hearst thing.
But-
You got to be able to just talk to them about what's happening today. And I
okay.
think the real quick thing also would be to talk about what happened with prohibition with alcohol.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so-
that's a lesson learned.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so
'Cause
those
Creek-
are the places I think that have been most
'cause
effective in all the conversations we've had in the community.
Yeah, and that's really very important that you brought that up. The fact that the lesson from prohibitions weren't learned, it just created a black market. It
That's
didn't
right.
it didn't make the behavior go away. It just made the people be more.
So I just know we're running out of time soon, but I just think about we in the legislature are doing everything we can to be proactive about Airbnb, proactive about casinos, proactive about cannabis, proactive about even the Lyft and the Ubers. We're trying our best, but it is difficult because of the fact that we are really changing industries. And as you change industries, there are going to always be winners and losers. And we're just trying to make sure that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts benefits most as we change these industries.
Well, I'm glad that you came out here and then that we got to talk about this. And your record on the legislation has been great, and you've definitely been like one of the representatives that's been easy to reach and talk to.
Sure.
Thank you so much for actually doing your job as being a representative and actually being able to, because literally you said you didn't know about this, and I reached out to you, and you came right out.
I have to stay open-minded.
Yeah, and then so I'm so glad that you actually came out and did the show. And again, like I hope you kind of.
I'm going to go and visit. I'm not going to
Visit
visit
the
all
booths.
300 of them, but I am going to get out and visit today and learn a little bit more. And I'm sure by my learning, like you say, I can then take that to the community and have it not be so abrasive in all the community meetings.
Yes, it's like, it's part of Mother Nature. It's a plant. It's not the enemy.
Again,
Yeah.
that's not going to be the good sale. I can tell you already.
All right.
All right.
So thank you again for coming
all
out.
right. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate
State
being out today.
Representative Russell Holmes and Rhodes Pierre here at NECANN TV. And stay tuned. We got a lot more coming out for you guys today, and we got another day after this as well.
Thank
Peace.
you. All right.